Hey, welcome out everybody to the AI Think Tank podcast. This is our third public show, and today we'll be discussing AI in K through 12 education. With us today, we have Rebecca Bultsma and Ahmad Jawad joining us from Alberta, Canada. Rebecca is an international AI trainer, presenter, and enthusiast renowned for her expertise in educating thousands of professionals about the fundamentals and risks of artificial intelligence. Her work focuses on enhancing Gen AI literacy and advocating for the ethical and responsible adoption of AI technologies, particularly in education. And she regularly contributes to various ethics committees and expert panels to foster responsible AI adoption. Ahmad Jawad is joining us from Edmond in the Alberta area today. He is the CEO of doceo.ai and ed tech company Intellimedia. Since founding Intellimedia, he has led the development of several high-value solutions utilized by many school districts. Ahmad is viewed as a strategic partner in the Alberta K-12 education market and has cultivated an extensive network with leaders, vendors, and experts within the field. So welcome out, you two. It's great to have you.
Thank
Hope
you.
you're doing well.
It's great to
Great.
be here.
Excellent. Yeah. So we've all talked plenty of times before privately, and I've been looking forward to this for, I don't know, about 2 months now. And this is just a great time, and I'm looking forward to hearing from both of your experiences in the field. So I know we have a few new people out today with us, so this is really exciting. And we'll get to hear from our audience later and have some Q&A down the road. So Rebecca, tell us a little bit about what you do and what you have been doing lately on these efforts and these fronts.
Sure. So I work primarily in communications and public relations, but within the K-12 education sector. And as I've gotten more involved in AI over the last couple of years, I've been out and speaking to lots of professionals in the K-12 education sector. Primarily, it started with communications and public relations people who were trying to figure it out. And then over the last year, it has extended that I've met and presented to groups of superintendents and school leaders from all across North America, Canada, the US, everywhere, and just tried to help push and further AI literacy because I foundationally believe that that's kind of the starting point for moving forward with AI in K-12 education is making sure everybody has at least a baseline understanding of what it is, how it works, and what the impacts will be, and getting across the message that it's here to stay. Here are some of the ethical risks you need to be aware of. And as I've done that over the last year and a half, I've realized the most frequently asked questions are, especially by our leadership groups, where do we start? How do we implement a policy around this? What should we be thinking about? What should we know about? What does the landscape look like? And so I also do some work helping people figure things like that out for their districts.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's very, very necessary steps for everybody, even outside of schools. So that's wonderful. And I mean, we all use it. We've used it for our own purposes, on the side. It's always been a wonderful Swiss Army knife. I know for the last, I don't know, 8 months for myself, I've been such a heavy user. And the better I got at using it, the less I had to use it, ironically. And it helped get me corralled for certain things. But different people use it in different ways, and kids are going to use it no matter what, whether anyone's looking or not. And that same goes for adults in their companies. And as I have found out and talked to people and just read it in the world, that it's people's secret weapon, and it helps give them the edge in their career and what they're doing. And not all companies really support or allow people to use AI tools inside on their intranets, but people are going to use it on their phones, and hey, that's how that goes sometimes. But there are security risks. There are other reasons that certain corporations and people don't want that inside, and that's understandable. But it is definitely a great learning tool for the individual, okay, on their own, away from school, and it really helps. But everyone's mileage varies, and I think we all have different approaches to learning too, depending on where we're at, what we're into, and what we're around, that we have as examples to learn from. And I thought about this really hard too. Back in my younger days, I used to teach drums, and I was a percussion instructor at many high schools and even outside of the state and different music stores. And there's so many things you can teach with words until you have to put your hands on something and you have to show someone exactly where to do it. And a drawing doesn't always suffice. Um, but therein lies that the leverage is the infinite patience of a tool that will sit there and just respond to your questions, no matter how redundant they may be, or what have you, maybe even misguided. And even if you had the best teacher to do this, you'd need a lot of these teachers for every, you need one teacher per person to have that time and patience, and ability. So our concerns aren't always around, ultimately, oh, who getting it to everybody, but how safe is this? How accurate is this? Even if it is ultimately patient, um, if it's not accurate, if it's not safe, then that's bad, and if that's going to give wrong answers or do the math, here's your math question, here's the problem, and it solves it, and it's one number off. I've had this happen, okay, and testing, and we used to use the fake employee list that had, I think, 80 employees, and you would ask it, how many employees are on this list, and it would tell you one number off every time, and you have to tell it, hey, this is wrong. I know how many there are. So there are a lot of caveats to the way things are set up in the systems and the way that we implement the back end. But more than not, we have these policies moving forward. We have, beyond ethics concerns, just general safety concerns, I would suppose. Rebecca, are there any big questions that come up often for you in this pursuit? What do you find
Oh
most?
yeah, there all the time are the questions. Just people want to know, for one thing, like, where do we start? Do we have to start from scratch and build a whole new, brand new, all-encompassing policy? And typically my advice to that is no. I think the most important part for people to get started is to just start around a set of principles or belief that they
Hmm.
can implement right away. And then from there, start going through your existing policy manual and pulling out areas that will be impacted from your existing policies. So specific policies might be any policies around content creation or citation or copyright or
Hmm.
your data privacy policy or
Right.
your student code of conduct policy. Start
Uh-huh.
looking at individual pieces and then start building something from there, but put some big principles or guiding principles into place right away. So that big question, the biggest one is, where do we start? Another
Uh,
one is, how do we detect when kids are using AI? And
oh, right,
the
right.
short answer is you can't,
Thank you.
right?
Right, right. You
It's
can.
impossible. And that's part of the education piece that people need to hear, because a lot of, when this all hit the fan and everybody was talking about in early 2023 how good AI was at writing essays, this is that hype cycle of technology. And Ahmad and I were at a conference with Dr. Sarah Eaton, who is a University of Calgary professor who's excellent. She showed a slide and was talking about how a new technology comes out. Kids figure out how to use it to cheat. All the teachers and people in charge freak out and come up with technology to fix it. And then kids find a way around it. And then a better version of it comes out and the cycle starts again.
Right,
And
right,
so I think the hardest thing is, how do we fix this? How do we determine this? And the answer has to be you can't. So then the next answer is, well, what do we do instead? And where do
right,
we go from here?
right. How do
So
we?
guiding some of those conversations is really important. Again, I'm not a teacher. I'm just part of those conversations. Our district, and this is something I recommend to any K-12 organization who is starting this process, is to put together some sort of a steering committee or an AI kind of consultation committee that will be the go-to people for this. And we'll
Mhm,
have these discussions and
mhm.
ask these questions and oversee the adoption and procurement and management of AI in the district, and then kind of
Right,
have it be a collaborative process from there. So
right.
there are tons and the questions all the time are,
Mhm,
how do we use this ethically? How do we teach everybody about this based
mhm.
on their varying levels of understanding?
Uh-huh.
Do we just dive in and start using it with kids? And I don't know about that. I think it's more important that teachers know how to use it first, or if it's going to kids, it needs to be in some sort of really good wrapper or
Mhm.
with lots of
Right.
guardrails on it.
That's
But it's
right.
an entire process. People have a lot of questions. Just, what does this mean for us? Am I going to lose
Uh-huh.
my job?
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
need to, those are important questions to ask and
right, right.
answer.
These are great tools because I'm more excited than anything else. I mean, not just for myself, but for all the kids out there. It always makes me happy to see people get it. Okay, that was one of the hardest things to do. A lot of times with people, especially in music, in my case, where you're trying to teach something that's about feeling. How do you hold this? How do you listen to your body? How do you do these things? And I worked with large groups of drummers. You know how difficult that is. but I was able to magically show them how and to wrangle them to feel in a certain way or to use that. And it's a great tool to get from point A to point B, but sometimes it becomes the entire muscle, which is bad, right? Okay. So beyond scholastics and education, if you're going to write an article on something, and let's say that you're going to write an article on all of your work, let's say this year you're going to make a synopsis of all the big points you covered. Now, let's say that you wrote 10 big articles in a year that were really heavy hitters, okay? And then you put all of those together and you chunked it and you fed it into a regenerative augmented retrieval system for AI, and that's called RAG. We call it that, but it's basically the ability to upload a corpus of data in order for the AI, the LLM, large language model, to interact with that data and talk to you about it. Okay. And I commonly use this to study. All right. And some things happened at OpenAI a week or two ago that messed that up. I'll go ahead and take a moment to talk about that. But I bought an ebook. I owned it. I'm even friends with my professor, and I uploaded it into a bot to ask it questions about particular things, to explain certain things to me in different ways. Okay. And it used to work, and I could get it to quote from the book to me exactly this or that, or show me this code. It won't do that anymore. So they changed their policies and they said, we can no longer supply copywritten material. All right. But I could get it to write a review on it for me. I could get it to do this, that, or the other. Okay. And I could get it to explain things. It just would not quote it. All right. So imagine on the scholastic end, you have, you know, the whole corpus of textbooks, right, which are copywritten, but they are scholastic and they are for public education. Okay. So with the blessing of those publishers, a school system or lots of school systems would be able to take some of this knowledge and have it accessible to the students via their whatever LLM models that they have available, that are safely available. Okay. A lot of people, if you're new to this, safety is on many fronts. And sometimes it's a wrong answer. Sometimes it's like bad information that really sounds correct, which if you let that go down the line, it's like a bad game of gossip. It's going to be so different by the time things take effect. It can really mess things up. But even if you do everything right, you're going to have the ability to ask questions to this data. And the way someone uses it and interacts with it is going to be to their own means, to their own what they'd like to do. All right. So here we are. You've got 10 articles that you wrote over a year, and you want to have it summarize your main points out of each one, right? Well, if you don't review that 4 pages of output or whatever you have made, allowed your AI to do, it might not have covered all of your points. And you could look at it and go, yeah, this looks great, and pass it off. And if a kid does that with their work, they're not really engaging the material enough, right? And so I always found that tools like this help me engage the material further. Hey, I'm already interested in learning something in particular, okay, right now. And then I use this tool to help me, but then I'm double checking to make sure, is it really reporting to me? And so that's what I would call definitely a safety and accuracy concern, because it's not safe for your education, all right, if you're giving bad information. So I think that's a safety concern, but nothing ethical, all right? It's just safe. Um, but here you are, and here we are with our tools now that we've been using for many months and that we like to help us engage our material further. And we find gaps and we find places where, this needs more, not necessarily guardrails, but it needs more guidance in particular. Okay. And more directive. Okay. Or tuning or what have you. And there's a lot of approaches there. I don't want to get too technical, but if you have this tool available for children and students, no matter what their age, and the older they are, they're dealing with more complex data, it can really help trick them into engaging and trying, because there are people out there who won't make the cut, who won't really be able to approach material for some reason or another because they don't understand, and that tool helps them get there. Okay. And not having it really is bad for them. And there's a lot of people out there who are engaging the media and what they're studying, and they may not have all the answers they need, so they reach out to that tool. They're already engaged, but for cheating and for widespread use of just people passing things off as something they wrote themselves, you can read it and kind of tell, the AI wrote it, but it's dangerous to assume every time, because right now in the last few weeks, I'm reading about a lot of real thoughtful writers who are getting caught in the fray of this, who did not use AI, who just have a writing style that's profound a certain way or another, or a very um, wordy a certain way. Okay, depend.
That's me for sure.
That
Like
you?
every
Okay.
Friday at 11 o'clock, I have on my calendar, I sit down, I write something totally out of my brain into like the notes app of my phone or notes on my desktop, and I put it in an AI detector. And I have been flagged as over 80% AI detected every single time. But AI is trained to write on human writing, and I'm a professional communicator. So the way I write is probably very standard or
Yeah.
technically standard.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I get flagged all the time, which
Right.
just shows maybe I started writing like that more once I started using AI more. Maybe I wrote like that before.
It's just how it goes. Ahmad, have you had much experience using this, running into this conundrum personally, or using this as a tool for your, uh,
Yes, I did. I mean, the question is, when can we use AI properly?
yeah, yeah,
Now, this question, actually, the answer is very great now. And thank you, Rebecca, for mentioning Dr. Sarah Eaton, because also she said, and it's important, and her research is focused on academic integrity. She told 180 people, educator leaders in Alberta, and most of them are superintendent. She said, AI is here, deal with it. And that's important. We have to deal with it. I'm just taking a course like Daniel. We did together same course. I'm taking another course, and actually part of the warning says has to be your work. It can't be AI generated. Now the question is, what is AI generated? Because if I want to improve my work, and when we did with Rebecca the conference, I had a speech, 90-second speech, and English is my third language. I wrote it at 4 a.m. and I put it in Gen AI. I mean, to make it better. I changed one or two words, seriously. And I made the presentation, and I said after the presentation that 4 a.m. in the morning, I did this. So one key is transparency, and I'm thinking about educators. Transparency for the students and the teacher to know where they are at, because the students need to be transparent, but also teacher need to have confidence of the work, but also to maybe they need to change the way they assess. And that's a big question. And when we talk about AI literacy, it is not about teachers, it's not about students, about everybody, including parents, because they need to be confident that the kids are learning. And what is learning? I mean, this key right now. I am learning a lot from the output of AI, because if I want to summarize an academic paper or any kind of papers, it's reducing the time for me to get to my goal. But I'm engaged with the content. Like your example, Daniel, you mentioned, the idea is it's not like, oh, AI did it, that's fine. I'll get presented. I need to understand it. And it is there to be dealt with and to be taken advantage of in a positive manner. Now,
right,
we worry about education to K to 12, that are they learning? Do they know to analyze? Do they know to write? Do they know to read? Specifically analyzing, meaning critical thinking, because sometimes AI, give us a wrong answer, but also there might be references that are wrong even, right? So we need to question data. In our business, I tell my client, always question the graphs and the data that we provide you, because you know your data better and you know your student better. And it doesn't mean that, AI is going to give us 100% the truth, but it's going to get us closer to an answer where we could us be engaged in it and move forward. So
I
yeah,
actually want to add to that too. I was in a meeting yesterday with a steering committee that we're running at our district, and someone said, aren't we lucky? Isn't it great that AI does give us wrong answers? And sometimes we learn the most by having to dive in and find those wrong answers or try and identify them. If we knew everything it was giving us was 100% right all the time and factual, we would have no reason to go in and dive into it, dig deeper, or ever think critically or help our kids examine it and think critically. So I kind of like the fact that it gives us wrong answers and forces us to think through the processes and how we ended up where we ended up. Otherwise, we would have no reason really to do that.
yeah. I mean, and ultimately, we want it to be accurate, but it just needs to be easier to engage in that respect. And there's a lot of things being worked out right now with like hallucinations and memory or long-term memory management. I mean, the newer llama that's on the horizon, that's 400 billion parameters. That's Yeah, right. That's massive. But there's
Crazy.
because everyone's fighting for context windows right now. And to everybody out there, you probably know, maybe you don't, context window is like the frame of focus that a large language model can keep in, is this largest frame of focus. Any more than that, you have to chunk the data, is what we call it. So if you have a really long document, like a 200-page book, at about 150 pages, you might have to chunk that document. There, it depends. But now it's coming into a sort of rotating frame where I recently found out this week that that might not be an issue going forward in the next half a year. And so things are rapidly changing, but the way we engage tools is relatively the same, in that there is this feedback loop of understanding, learning, and feeling, and gaining ground with something in order to have that leverage. And but it's interesting you should say that, Rebecca, that it is good that there is some questionable aspects to it, because it causes you to engage further. But there are
Can I add
going to,
one thing to this? So can
yeah.
I add? It's I was in a meeting at the university about 2 months ago, and then we're meeting with the professor and the chair, and we had different companies. And the chair of the department asked us, how you're using Gen AI, or this specifically. I smiled, I didn't say anything, I just want to listen. So a big company in Alberta, actually in Canada, and then their programmers are using Gen AI to create codes. Now, if you think about it, well, it could be the same thing as a student creating a paper, right? But at the end of the day, that programmer or that company are responsible to modify, understand, and maintain that code. But more importantly, they are responsible, meaning when they go out to the market, meaning giving the work to somebody else, they are responsible. And that's a key word, where the questioning of the data and saying making a mistake is a good thing. Actually, it's a good thing, because we always need to question, and we need to do same thing. We could use Gen AI to check the references or create something. We could also check other information in there to ensure it's accurate, and that's important. So the responsibility, I would say, lie on us when we present work from AI. So
Right, right.
And to add to that too, from a legal perspective, companies are liable for what their company creates, whether it is AI generated or not, which means if you have to have rigorous policies in place for that fact checking, and to make sure that what your company is releasing or giving to clients, if that contains hallucinations, misinformation, errors that you didn't properly fact check, ultimately you are responsible for it. Your company is responsible for it. So it just
Right.
really needs to be taught at an education level, that
Uh-huh.
idea of digital and ethical
Right.
responsibility and citizenship.
Yeah. Copy is copy, no matter who writes it, and you're liable for it when you put it out.
It's interesting that you say that, because this is one other thing I was thinking about, because we hear this all the time, and still in schools and universities, kind of like you were saying, Ahmad, you are not allowed to use Gen AI to create your assignments or whatever. It has to be human created. You have to do it yourself without AI. And I just don't know if I fully understand what that means, because at what point does it become plagiarism or unethical? If I use it to brainstorm, or if I use it to evaluate my ideas or help me kind of ripple effect, think bigger, different ideas. If I use it to analyze my thesis, or if I use it to test information, or if I use it to ask me questions to further my thinking, or if I use it to write an outline, at what point do I disclose? At what point am I being unethical with my assignment or my professor? Is it only if I have it generated with a straight copy paste? Is there 100 edits on an AI generated thing is the limit? And then how does that fit into every president who's ever had a speechwriter write their entire speech for them, that all the quotes are accredited to them? And we are not making a big deal about that, but this is a big deal. So as a communications expert, I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, right. You know, it's just like when you go and you write a document and you have all these templates that you can select from for different types of things. That's not cheating. You're using a template. And oh, I'm going to write a book, and it's going to have, you know, a title and, you know, author and a year. Oh, it's going to have a table of contents. Oh, it's going to have the, you know, the actual, you know, volume itself. And it's going to have a glossary maybe and all this. And, but whatever it is, it's a template. And I mean, you're just trying to, a lot of these tools just help you wrangle what you have to say into a form of a template. And a lot of times you'll see a lot of bulleted lists, you know, come out of Chat GPT and other ones out there too. I use a lot. I use Claude. I use Chat GPT. I use Gemini. I go over to Poe. They have some special stuff there. I use Text Cortex. They have their own thing. I use a lot of stuff actually. And I love the variety. And I at the same time, you can tell you know, it's over formatted in some cases. It's way too rigid. And, you know, that's obviously not what a human would do most cases, you know. But to have something help you wrangle your thoughts. If I write 4 paragraphs and it's really like a stream of thought, but it really has a lot of my points in it, I could ask the chat to, hey, make this human readable. You know, this is way too wordy and compressed. And it shows me what my writing would be if I did a better job. Okay. And look at that and go, well, those are my words. That's exactly what I would write. It may have taken me 2 hours to get there, but I did it in 10 minutes of proofreading and trying. Okay. So the human in the loop is so important here. Okay. And that's really what it's always going to come down to. We don't want people using it as something they just automate and let go into the wild. We want people to engage that and be in the loop with it. And I mean everybody, students, educators, creators, managers, leaders, all of this. Um, it's getting you to the point of being able to proofread something quicker. Imagine you spend 2 days writing something, or let's say a whole day writing something important, and now it's time to proofread it. Well, what if you got there quicker and then you could really spend that time and the quality to say, hey, these are covering the points that I wanted to share. This does elucidate the facts that are really like, you know, telling for what my point is. And get in there and be a crafty writer, something to help you get to the precipice, then you can do the real work. I think that's key. All right.
But
That's my,
then the question becomes, how do you cite that? What do
yes.
you disclose about your AI
Uh-huh.
use in that situation? Is it different than if I were to call Ahmad and say, hey, I just wrote this article, will you read it and give me some feedback?
Uh-huh.
Well, I probably wouldn't disclose that. Maybe I would, but
Could
at
you,
what point do I need to disclose my AI
okay.
as a student or as a teacher?
Okay, so you've supplied a budget to us. We all have a business together, and you supplied a budget. Now, now, am I going to ask you? Did you use a calculator to do this? You better
Or
have.
Grammarly? Did you use Grammarly?
Or did you use spell correct? You know, spell check. Did you? So
But
at what?
people are hung up on that in education, right?
Right.
Like they'll
Right.
say, even Ahmed heard this as an adult learner. It sounds like, hey, in your course where they said you're not to use AI to do this.
Mhm.
But
Right.
like, where's the line? And why not? Because in your real life, you would be.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious what Ahmed thinks about that, because I think he's given this some thought too.
Yeah, you know what I think about is part of the reason, not because I was part of the March 20th conference. I pushed to have the conference because of the AI literacy from point of view of getting everybody comfortable. What is AI? Everybody have used it. We know that Gen AI and other stuff personally. And when they are comfortable, they are less resistant to change and rethinking methodology of learning and so on, right? When we have somebody like Dr. Sarah Eaton talking, and she's kind of research academic integrity, well, I mean, this is where the influence has to have. They have to decide those questions, and they're going to give power to the students first and to the teachers to say how they could work together to ensure first they are learning and all those rules about citations and so on. Do we have to do them similar to what we just mentioned? Because it really doesn't make sense. Because if I'm improving work that I've done, do I need to say I did Gen AI? I don't know. I mean, if a professor tells me you have to, well, I need,
Nobody knows.
yeah,
Yeah.
transparent. And I think those rules are coming, not rules, those understanding they're going to be coming because they need to deal with them. And learning itself is going to change. I think but people going to students going to be learning faster
Mhm.
depending on how the teacher leverage the use of AI, right? In terms of not only of research but also learning the language and also learning math and sciences representation and so on, right? So even music, like Daniel,
Right.
mentioned to us. So when I say we don't know, I'm not an educator, but I'm a parent. For me, learning is important. I want to make sure my kid who's at university, he's still a kid, so he's at university. I want to make sure that he's learning because he has to face the world out there and he's going to make sure to learn something new. So learning never stop. Will AI help him get to his goal faster? And that's for me what AI is. It's getting us to certain goals faster, action or task or paper, whatever it is. And this is what we need to take advantage of in the positive way, right? Because at the end of the day,
Right.
we're reaching our goal faster, and that's the point. So
Yeah, and
And I love,
I've got a
go ahead.
question from the audience here. This is so hi for all. This is from Costington, they ask, name 3 places where AI can be used by students and teachers every day without harming personal knowledge. Okay, this is a big question, and I like it. Okay, so name 3 places where AI can be used by students and teachers every day without harming personal knowledge. Okay.
It's a loaded question because I think that the way that teachers use AI is different than how students use AI. And I really think teachers need to get comfortable using it first before they can be guiding students in using it. But off the top of my head, like I think teachers can be using it to help structure lesson plans, give it a lesson plan you've developed, give it the persona of a student of a certain demographic and have it evaluate to see how it will be received and ask questions about it.
Right.
To develop tests is, test questions. Let's say you're a school that offers rewrites, but part of the difficulty in that is teachers having to have lots of versions of a test to give kids a rewrite so they're not getting the same one. AI can help you by looking at existing tests to rewrite an existing test. There's a lot of different ways, even in a personal life, that it can help teachers. It can help it with marking keys. I know Texas actually is using AI to grade thousands of standardized tests now. So it's helping in that way. I don't know if that's good or bad for teachers, but it could be.
There's some
For students, I look at it as for differentiated learning. Let's say you're teaching your class about sharks and you have a kid who just does not learn the same way as other kids. You can use AI to quickly do up coloring or specialized sheets or something specific to sharks. Or if you have a kid who has a special interest that is not following along with what's happening, it's very easy for you to develop materials that will be directly for that kid, or use an AI to explain things in a way they understand. So it can be used to further learning that way as well. So I think there's all these little niche ways. And as I'm on this committee with all the we put together this generative AI steering committee, and we spent all day yesterday sharing how the teachers were using it. And everybody has tons of ideas that they found that works best for them in their situations. And I think that's the great part about AI is everyone is figuring out what works best in their circumstances, little ways and big ways. And that's part of what makes it exciting, I think.
It's tactful creativity. You can throw it right into a situation to come up with something. Okay, let's forget about grading tests for a minute, but let's talk about creativity. Here's 10 questions on a test. I would like for the AI to rewrite the questions in a way to make them worded differently. It's like a math problem that's you word it out a certain way. It could be the same problem, same answer, but you've worded it differently. Things like that to keep things different or to find more variety in something.
Or you have it write you 3 essays, right? Write one that's like a 90% on this topic would be an 80%, a 70%, 60%, and then give them out for the kids to grade and evaluate and figure out where the errors were made and what they would assign it, or where the logic was flawed, or why was this a 60%? Find 10 errors in this paper. A teacher doesn't have to sit and write it all out and do it all now. You can say, develop me this, give me an answer key, and then use that in your class. And it doesn't matter if things are right or wrong or there's hallucinations. It becomes a tool you developed quickly that you can use to help your class learn.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's just like with, anything multiple choices, that's just robotic. There's no reason for AI. But when it comes to AI looking through hundreds and thousands of compositions, you have to write the student has to write a, 2-paragraph answer for something, right? And you could ask, all right, did the student cover the main points? And it would say yes or no. And then where it said no, you could look at it, but where it said yes to you, you would have to look at it too and go, okay, really, did it do a good job? Yeah. And once you qualify an LLM to be your assistant, your TA for grading, then you can finally say, oh, okay, yeah, I can trust the fact that it's seeing the good ones, but the ones that are questionable, it's going to pull me into the loop. And I'm going to look at that and go, okay. Again,
Well,
the
you
idea
hope,
yeah, you
because
hope.
that's what they're doing in Texas for
Right.
thousands of statewide exams. So you hope
You
it
hope,
does a good
right.
job.
Ideally, you would say brings you to the precipice of actually doing that quality work and the deep dive on something versus all the time it takes to get to that point of actually looking for the fine points,
But on the other side, this is something my superintendent brought up because he's an expert. He says that the most valuable thing a teacher can ever do is participate in marking those standardized exams. In Alberta, it's diploma exams, because they get the opportunity to read hundreds of essays and student work and get a sense of what's going well and good papers and bad papers, and that's valuable. And Texas eliminating 4,000 teachers from that process becomes ethically great for me,
Yeah.
because the teachers are missing out on the extra income, and they're missing out
Right.
on the experience of being involved in this. And so it's all great. Everything about it is great.
It
It's
is.
good and bad.
It needs to evolve things. I've got a question from Harris Marin. She asks, I've always understood that you don't create rules that can't be measured. In that light, it is unreasonable for educational institutions to ban AI use when they cannot measure it. Your thoughts? It's kind of, this is what we want to get to. I mean, this is really, you're out there doing this work, Rebecca, to get students and teachers closer to that. I feel like from following you, reading what you do, seeing the results. And that's,
It's a great question. It's a
yeah,
great question.
yeah,
And it's something that most teachers are struggling with. We had this conversation yesterday with our group, and we understand that the process, we're going to have to focus on the process of learning instead of the finished product, right? It used to be, we're going to teach you stuff in class, and then you're going to prove you know it by handing in an essay, a product, and we will mark you on that. And we all understand that now we're going to have to go to more process-based learning, like show us how you arrived at this, show you the AI gave you 30 suggestions, show us why you took them or didn't take them, or why they were good or bad, and how you arrived at your product, which is great. But how do you measure a learning process? Like, how
right.
do you grade that? And I think that's what the question is. And yeah, we've always thought that we shouldn't be implement anything unless we understand black and white that this is how it's going to work and this is how we're going to measure it. And I think we can't do that anymore, but I don't think anyone has clear answers on how we
Right.
measure the process of learning. Maybe
Right.
Ahmad does. He's like an expert in all of these things, and he's
Right.
so smart.
And if you spend longer time answering a question, you might be more interested in it than having problems with it. So there's no,
Totally. And
yeah,
you're more ready to enter the workforce, which is the goal. Does being able
yeah,
to write an essay automatically qualify you for entering the real world? Or are you better prepared once you've experienced the process of learning? But then how do we measure it? Ahmad, I want to hear what you say.
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking when he was talking about the process, said, can you just put it somewhere publicly for schools across, because that's important. The learning process is actually changing. Now, what's also changing are the tool. AI right now is not static. It's moving forward, and its power is moving forward. So when we go back to the understanding of AI impact, the school system, meaning the teachers and everybody, needs to know what it is. Right now, it's not there. There is lots of conversation. When I say it's not there, meaning they are not, basically they're not trying nothing, but they're trying, but they need to have the proper framework and continuous AI literacy from point of view of what is a tool and what's the impact and how we're going to be changing the way we teach. Part of that is the learning process, because right now I need to question the way the student learn. Well, I'm not going to ask him about your work only. Well, if AI or if ChatGPT provided something, discuss what he provide. Are you in favor or not? Are you, if you're not, can you tell me your opinion, right? And this is where the learning is going to be changing. And similar to what Daniel was talking about before, I think was your content from the professor or the book. And this interaction with AI becomes, you know, between the students and AI, where it's much more close to human-like, in a sense that I'm asking a question because I'm asking a smart question. I'm trying to learn, and I would like to know as a student. And this is that interaction is also learning, right? So, you know, it is ongoing, and I think we need to provide as much as we can resources to school system to say this is what's happening, right?
right.
And I'm happy that, you know, and can I mention the name of the school districts? Westwind, right? Is it Westwind?
Yep.
So Westwind School District, right? I mean, this is the greatest happening, but it need to happen not only there, it's in every school district across North America or the world, because this is where it's important to really rethink the way we're doing things in schools, and then leverage for positively what AI could provide. So great questions. So this
Yeah.
is
And I've got another one here, and I just want to say a lot of the questions are just awesome that are coming up from the audience, and they're vast, and we're going to be able to answer them more fully as we go. They're not easy answers. Harris Marin had brought up another question that really ties into a lot of what we're saying, but I've got one from Yvette asking, what role could AI have in child-led learning in elementary school age kids, either in a classroom setting or outside of the classroom.
I
Okay.
think about this all the time, and I don't know if I have necessarily, like, I went to school originally to be a teacher, but I also got married young, had my kids, went back later in life and went another direction. So I am not a certified teacher, but I've worked in education for a long time in the rooms where the superintendents are and in the meetings. And so I listen a lot, but Ethan Mollick is one of my favorite AI guys to
Oh
follow.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
a professor at Wharton, and he talks about this idea of a flipped classroom. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but in his mind, kids at home use the AI to learn the actual information in whatever way that they learn it best, right? If you have to learn about the Civil War or something, you interact with the AI within hopefully a framework that doesn't hallucinate and that the teacher has loaded with everything you need to know, but you learn it however you learn best. And then the classroom time is spent on fully engaging with the material, interacting and doing activities face-to-face, human-led, human
Hmm.
engaging based on that content that's been learned
Right.
to help deepen learning. And
Right.
I don't know if that's the answer or not, and I don't know if it would work in elementary.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of systems like Khan Academy that are coming up with these different ways that it can be used at home. But
Mhm.
again, that's predicated then on AI literacy for the parents,
Yeah.
understanding it, understanding why it's valuable, understanding how to use it, and access. Like this idea of the digital divide that we've seen. I
Yes.
know during COVID, we noticed it in our district because
Mhm.
we have communities in our district that there wasn't even internet access available at home for them or on their reservation. So they fell behind because they didn't have access to technology during
Wow.
COVID when they were learning at home. And
Wow.
so this digital divide when they came back was huge. And there's the potential for this to happen again
Yeah.
with this gap in kids who have access to AI and the kids who don't, or parents who know how to use it and
Right.
parents who
Right.
don't. And so that just speaks again
Uh-huh.
to the whole idea of every person on earth, parents, students, teachers,
Uh-huh.
need to be able to understand this, how it works, and have access to good versions of it.
Right.
I know that's way beyond the scope of the question. Sorry.
Yeah, and just a side note, the Khan Academy, that they developed their own LLM model that's safe. They
And we
actually
go,
They really, yeah, they put a lot of effort into it. And where that's at right now, I'm not sure. That was a few months ago. I was listening to an interview with the creator of that. So I'm unsure. But and then I'd like to say something on a previous topic here, is that back to automating things and whatnot. We say, well, is using spell check cheating or a calculator cheating? Let's get something straight. If you're writing something out and you use spell check, it's not going to save you, because yeah, that word is spelled properly, but it's the wrong word. And that's what happens a lot, there's like 3 ways to do that, there, there's all kind of ways to do things where automating something isn't going to save you. It can hurt you. Okay. Let's see what else. And I also invite everyone to think back to well, if you feel like it, think back to the 80s. I had a speak and spell, okay? And that was as close to AI as I had. And as some of you may know, a speak and spell will get you to spell words. It'll say the word, and then you have to type it out and spell it. And that's child-led learning if I ever had it. Okay. I also had chemistry sets and other like electronics kits, but I had a different kind of past. All right. I was alone a lot. So, but I think on the large, people love having tools, no matter how young or old you are, that help you with everyday things or help you have fun engaging the world around you. Okay. Be it a camera to give you a closer view to something, be it, a book, that help you like understand certain plants or trees, you're out taking pictures of. I mean, there's all these ways to engage. And the moment you start bringing in something that has the ability to read, and well, seems like it reasons, but it doesn't, but predict what's next and help you as a tool, that can be an amazing platform to get you to the next level of something, or it can really mess you up if it's not accurate. And
well, with that, when you
yeah.
bring that up, people always use the calculator analogy a lot, but I always think in terms of spreadsheets, right?
Mhm.
You remember the guys sitting at their desk doing numbers with the long curly piece of paper coming out the back. And suddenly when spreadsheets came and you could add 10,000 numbers
Yeah.
at the click
Yeah.
of a button,
Uh-huh.
like, well, so why didn't we lose all of the accountants in the world if
Right.
that could just happen? Well, because now we needed people to make sure that that was semi-accurate
That's
or
right.
completely accurate, but also that gave accountants the ability to scale up. Suddenly
Yes.
you could work with way bigger number sets and you
Uh-huh.
could do more things with numbers you ever could have before. We didn't lose the accountants. We
Accuracy.
just gave them the ability to
Uh-huh.
think bigger and do
Yeah.
more and scale up. And I think education will be the same.
And this is, and I, you know, and oddly enough, I learned this. So Robert Sambrook is my old boss and dear friend, and someone I worked with and still work with for about 20 years now. He wrote Lotus 123 on his own and sold it. That was the first spreadsheet software ever. And they kept their own, the real world, DOS based inventory management software. They still have it now. And it's so old and they still can use it. It's so funny. But I learned on the very small end of things how reasonably powerful it is, because it's not about cheating or automating anything. If you have a whole bunch of things and you're trying to manage it and you're doing your best and you're using a calculator, but you're managing all these papers and you're trying to juggle a lot, you might be inaccurate, even if you tried your best. But if you have a spreadsheet, well, that's way easy. Just sum those rows, right, in the column. And then you can count on that. But the people who write software and the people who make LLMs and, you know, create weights and tune them and give them certain guardrails, they're responsible for that. Have you ever heard of buying a cheap calculator that actually didn't work for some calculations? I've had one. That's one of those things you collect if you're a nerd like that. But there are a lot of cheap calculators out there that are inaccurate when it gets to certain numbers. That's far out, right? But that's just a simple, you know, electronic logic circuit issue. But when it comes to LLMs, this is way more vast. Okay. Even with images, okay, let's say you're doing Gen AI for visuals and you want to do a logo. Or I think a lot of us commonly use Dolly and Midjourney to create things for our presentations and whatnot. But the moment it tries to spell things out, it can be a little iffy. It might not get the words right. It's not really English based. Just the same way an LLM is not math based and cannot reason out that math. You might have a better time saying the word 5 plus the word 4 equals, and it would tell you 9, than actually using numbers in some cases. And I've had a lot of people agree with me on that, where it's profoundly odd that should be the case at any point. But you know, with the multi models coming together and people having, you know, multiple agents to do something, that's where we get a lot more accuracy. You know, let's say if you're on OpenAI and you're using ChatGPT 4, it has its own sandboxed backend for Python, and it has several libraries built into it for math plotting or for pandas, which is for, you know, dealing with text and text extraction and working with words. It has a lot of things where it can try it out on its backend and then give you an answer on the prompt that's accurate, but it's not doing it the normal way. It's passing it off to Python script, and then it's using actual deduction, actual logic that's based on programming language, not, you know, vector relation, Bayesian inference, sentiment analysis, KNN, which is great, but hey, you want to deduce for accuracy. You don't want to guess for accuracy, okay? Differential equation, you're gonna have to do some guessing to get there, plugging and playing variables, but not everything is like that, and a lot of things are straightforward and deserve that deductive path. Okay, so
Can I
Ahmad,
comment?
yeah,
Yes,
go
I
ahead.
want
I'll
to
pull you in for this one.
recommend, you know, someone. It's very good. So she talked about the, you know, the spreadsheet and the accountant. So what's bringing me is to the idea: are we going to people afraid of losing their job, right?
Mhm.
And the idea is of an accountant, and talk about scalability. The accountant, if they're using spreadsheet right now, other than the programs too, for sure they won't be able to do their job because they're doing something more complex. Same thing with a teacher, same thing with an engineer, same thing with a doctor when we have imaging to do with cancer and so on. So they need to be comfortable and adopt and adapt to AI regarding this. So the idea of losing a job, I think it's not a question, is not going to happen, but it's going to happen only if we don't basically embrace AI, understand it, and leverage it to our benefits as a person and also as a basically if we're engineers, programmers, teachers, and so on. So
Yeah, we don't be left behind.
it's like,
It's possible for anybody to be left behind at this point. You
yeah,
can,
Well, I think you can fill in the blank with any technology.
yeah,
Anyone who
yeah.
refused to adopt calculators or laptops
Wow.
or anybody who refused at any stage to adapt to new technology would
Yeah.
have been left behind.
Look at the old, I mean, go back to the birth of the number zero, okay? And a long, long time ago, it was the abacus that did that math for us, okay? And on trade routes, you have different cultures coming together across different nations, and they're all using this adopted technology, this abacus. And then not until the invention of the number zero did we have that, radix 10 system, that we actually have the ability to scale our math properly and to have that shortcut. And so there were competitions between merchants from different cultures on who could actually do it quicker. So, you come somewhere, you go thousands of miles to come get somewhere and trade, and then you're having to do as much business as possible. And here are people doing their business quicker with this new math. They have the number zero. Okay. There's a book called Zero, The Biography of a Dangerous Idea by Charles Seif. I highly recommend it. But anyway, it was a cultural concern, the number zero, because they thought, oh, this is not sacred. There's something about it that supersedes all power in the universe or what have you. But honestly, it was just a placeholder. Okay. And so once it was adopted, it was done so through merchants trading. And that's how it made it to the West. So that's how the number zero made it to the West from the East. It was through trade. And it took that even through mathematic competitions to drive the point home. And then people adopted it. And here we are with calculators with zero on it, right? So, and the abacus is still powerful, but it's not as scalable or powerful as a calculator. But the calculator is limited too, to so many digits in its frame until you get a better one, and then a better one, and then more compute until finally there's no room for the numbers, and then you have another limit. So, yeah, I always found it similar to that. I mean, it's not like a power tool. Like, I mean, it is like an electric drill versus a hand bore. Okay, a hand bore, and you have a lot of workers working on wood, and then all of a sudden electricity's been around for a while, but oh, someone invents this motor, now we have an electric drill. Is that going to replace that worker with a hand bore? No, you have to hold the drill. You need a worker. Is it going to allow the worker to do more and better work? Yes. And without wearing out their body? Yes. So that helps everybody, right? But not everything is cut and dry with AI. In fact, it's far from that.
Yeah,
And
I think that's why the tool analogy, I hear it a lot, but I don't fully agree
yeah,
with it. People say, oh, AI is just a tool, AI is just a
yeah,
tool.
it's not
Well, if you use a hammer and you swing a hammer, you 100% know what's going to happen when you swing the hammer. When you
right.
use AI, you could think you're using a hammer and it ends up midway through being a completely different kind of
Yeah.
tool, or doing something completely unexpected, or
Mhm.
turning into a power drill 3/4 of the way through. We are using, like,
Yeah.
it's just not as predictable as the idea of what we usually conceptually think of as a
And we're
tool.
That's right. And we're used to that. We're used to being A/B tested by OpenAI. And like again, I had a perfectly working bot, and all of a sudden it wouldn't talk to me anymore the same way it used to. And that's what they're
I
A.
had that same
Yeah.
problem. Like when the lawsuit from New York Times first hit, I
Mhm.
took like a list I'd made of probably like 100 bullet points I'd been making for a while, put it into OpenAI and said, I want you to organize this into a table alphabetically. And it was like, sorry, I can't do that. And I used all my tricks, but it was like, no, I can't take information from anywhere else and use it for anything. And I was like, I own this data. This is my information. And
Uh-huh.
it's like they'd made a tweak based on the lawsuit, based on
Yeah.
something
All
that
right.
I just could not get it to work,
Mhm.
even with my own data. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's things changing all the time with
Mhm.
it that make it frustrating. You notice that, Ahmad?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that, but also to make me think about schools or organization, can they have their own LLM as technology get more advanced in terms of price, not price, price of creation, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's key. For school, I believe that they need to come together as school districts in Canada and
Yes.
as group,
Mhm.
not only from point of view of doing LLM, but also of trying to share the data without student name.
Yes.
So this is where AI get
Mhm.
better. You have more data, you
Mhm.
have better result of prediction, better
Yeah.
result recommendation, and so on. So
Yes.
the coming together of data is important, but also to having your own, meaning as an organization, secure LLM that you'll
Right.
be able to feed it and also
Mhm.
it will learn from you also from the data that you provide. So.
Right. Right.
I,
And
I
costs
think,
are, yeah.
yeah, cost is a huge thing. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, yeah, because the LLM is going to be, if you run it yourself, let's say you've got Llama, and 70 billion's going to take some compute. But a smaller Llama, 70 or 7 billion, is a small language model. It's way limited. It's not going to be as extensive. It's not going to have some of the creative ability. Okay. You're going to have to leverage that cost. I mean, no one's going to be able to afford the really dangerous thing, honestly. If you think about it, uh, people are going to be able to afford the small language models that don't have as much tied into them, that really draw on the corpus of data that we give it. You know, a scholastic AI, okay, for example, and that all public schools share this model, and that it's maintained by so many people in the open source community that is safer because so many eyes are on it and so many people who care are on that. We had Linus Torvalds was in town this week here in Seattle, just down the street from me, you know, the inventor of Linux and Git. And a lot of the people that are involved with safety in AI and safety in implementation and keeping things open are making great efforts right now. I see that we have Riza Rasul here today, and Riza is a really good friend of mine. He is with Kwaii. They have been building their own sovereign OS AI type platform system. Um, let's see here if I could get him to come up and talk for a minute and have something to say about this. This is a little random, but let's see. Riza, are you with us there? Let's see.
I'm going to unmute. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Thanks so much, Daniel,
Yeah.
for calling on me. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for being a part of Kwaii.
Yes.
Just briefly, Kwaii, let's see, I retired from being CTO of Real Networks last summer, but I've been busier than ever. I formed a nonprofit with the ambition of democratizing AI. And so how hard can that be? And I put out a call to action with to a few of my colleagues, and before we knew it, a movement was growing. A movement is growing. We'll probably have 1,000 volunteers before the year is up. What are we doing? Well, we're writing code, we are researching, and we're developing policy. The code development is in the area of personal AI. It's our thesis that you should own your own AI. Why? Well, because the alternate is probably not going to empower you. If vendors own the digital Daniel or the digital Ahmad or the digital Rebecca, then hey, that's just going to be business as usual, and you're going to be bombarded with ads for stuff that they think you want. Why don't they just ask you? Well, they couldn't until now. If you have your own personal agent, they can ask the agent. And so with IEEE, we're standardizing the machine-to-machine protocol by which vendors can communicate with agents and find that, hey, it's a lot simpler. Then the other alternative is, what if your employer owns the digital Rebecca or the digital Ahmad? How easy would it be for an employer to, I don't know, have a look at the corporate email system and see how you, I don't know, responded to inbound contracts, how on term by term you pushed back. Before you know it, a contract negotiator could be, a digital form would occur. What if you're a professor? So we're talking about education. What if you're a professor and hey, they've got all your course curriculum material in Canvas or Blackboard or wherever they keep it, whatever the LMS is? They could build a digital professor. They know every essay that you've assigned and how you graded every student paper coming in. It'll be called a co-pilot initially. Hey, professor, we've got a co-pilot here. It's going to make your life easier. You wouldn't have to work so hard. Why don't you start using this? You know what conversation is going to happen very quickly after that. We want to wish you well in your future career, whatever that might be. Your course will continue in the style that you taught it. Thank you very much for your loyal service for the past decade. We've hired a TA or someone at a fraction your rate to continue it. Okay, so that's the dystopian path. So we thought, okay, what can we do about that? So in Kwaii, we're building the tools to allow everyone to own and operate their own AI. Really simply, So the AI would allow you to take control and possession of your own data. It's actually any company that wishes to operate in Europe and therefore has to abide by GDPR has to, by law, create a connector by which individuals can repatriate, decolonize. I'm using emotive language, decolonize their data so they can take possession. Turns out, since we're talking about education, Canvas makes that really difficult. They do allow you to export the data, but in a proprietary format. And they don't provide any mechanism for you to unpack that. So, well, fortunately, on the interwebs, there exists a GitHub repo where someone has decoded the proprietary format. So I've demoed to you this virtual teacher's assistant that we've built. It runs in a browser. You can play with it, Rebecca, if you want.
Can you share your
Uh,
screen? Do you
oh,
have the what we were looking
oh,
at yesterday up? You could show the actual agent
yeah.
that we usually
Okay.
show off in our meetings.
If
Yeah,
you
just
As a side note, I just love your voice. I just want to take your voice and have it read all my audiobooks to me.
oh
Give me an
okay.
AI version of your voice in 11 Labs and I'll have it
yeah, there we
read you my,
go.
my
Thanks so
academic
much.
journals. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated.
So in this form, how do I share my screen? I think I'm just a viewer here.
Well, it should
Oh,
be a
you
little. It should have a little arrow at the bottom. Although it's not
I've
letting me.
joined as a
Okay.
actually, why don't you share it, Daniel? It's in a
Okay.
browser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me
I will
find that real quick here and
chat to you and send you the link.
yeah,
But
do that. That would be great. Go ahead and send that to me right now. Yeah, this is exciting. I didn't. This is the beauty of going live. You never know who's going to show up and what they're going to bring with them. So
where are you based, Reza?
Los Angeles.
Oh, nice.
okay, let's see here. And he used to. We were almost neighbors out here in Seattle. So
Yeah, well, I used to live in Seattle. I had an apartment there. Sadly, we had to give that up when I retired. But
okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. And there you go. So that's the agent. Go ahead and let's talk about this.
well, you can type questions in
Mhm,
there. Yeah. So
mhm,
she'll take a while to wake up. I'm not sure if anyone's been.
mhm.
Hello, I'm Penny, an AI assistant here to help you with any questions about the course British Literature Roman 2 at College of Canyons. If you have any specific questions or need assistance, feel free to ask.
Nice.
So I don't know. You can go and ask. You're a student, and so this is, and you see that it actually gives you the references. So
Mhm,
let me tell you what flavor of AI this is using. This is not using Chat GPT. It's not using a large language model. It's using the language model just for the purpose of being able to query it with language in natural language. It is. Oh, excellent. There we go. That's a good question.
As
mhm.
Penny, I'm good at understanding and generating text-based content, but I am not specifically designed for working with Python code. My primary function is to assist with questions related to the course British Literature Roman 2 at College of Canyons and provide information based on the context provided. If you have any questions about the course or need help with text-based content, feel free to ask.
Right. So isn't this fantastic? It doesn't go
Yeah.
off and hallucinate an answer. It sticks to its script. It sticks to the knowledge base that it is informed by. And so this class of AI is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And we wanted to make it as simple as possible so a non-technical professor can connect to Canvas, ingest
Mhm.
their course material, and that populates the RAG vector database, the knowledge base. But it should be adding documents and curating that knowledge base should be as simple as dragging and dropping files into a folder. So my wife actually helped design this. She's the English professor at College of the Canyons here in LA, and we are going to be beta testing this during Q3. It's still in development, so what you're seeing is a proof of concept. But you're free to ask it some more questions. You can actually speak to it as well. I'll
That's
stop
right.
talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. I know Caleb was saying something here in the chat. Let's see if I can get this talking to me. Hi, how are you doing, Penny? Hi, how are you doing, Penny?
Okay.
I don't have I have a few microphones set up
Oh,
right now.
you have a
So
few
I'm
microphones.
not
Yeah.
going to do that. Yeah, that's a
Right.
little bit much for me right now,
So
but
stay and
yeah.
just type in there. So ask it, what authors are we covering in this course? Something course specific.
In this course, we will be covering various authors from the Norton Anthology of English Literature. Some authors mentioned in the lectures include Charles Dickens and Oscar Wilde. Additionally, we will be discussing works by William Blake, such as The Tiger from Songs of Innocence and of Experience, and The Chimney Sweeper from Innocence and Songs of Innocence and of Experience.
Okay. Nice.
Okay, so look, it's informed by the course curriculum material for this course, British Literature 2. It says Roman 2. It's interesting how the text to speech and speech to text, which we've basically leveraged open source technology for all of this, and this is basically an integration of open source tech. The code is available. So we've got volunteer engineers working on this code base. The reason or the differentiation between this and what you would get with ChatGPT or one of the other, a Copilot that, for instance, that comes with Microsoft Office, is you own the data. It's
Right.
very important for you to own your own Copilot. If you don't, you're in effect giving up the pilot seat. And that is a sort of an educational message we should convey to workers. Don't sleepwalk through this age. This is a phase we're going through where your intellectual property, your skills can slowly be usurped and taken over. And there's a real a real opportunity for a complete destabilization of the relationship between employer and employee that we've enjoyed for decades, for centuries. So AI in the hands of big business is going to be used to devalue and extract more value out of individuals. AI in your hands will be empowering. Imagine a personal agent that knows you intimately, where that data is secure and private to you, one that you can talk to with natural language. We'll get that demo working, but it will make you a better you. And so I'm not really interested in improving your employment productivity. I mean, that's a byproduct. But just making you a better you, being able to have a conversation with your own data would be empowering. Anyway, that's what we're about, and I'll get off my high horse.
And I've got two questions here. Caleb's got one for you, Riza. Caleb, I brought you up. You want to speak, Caleb?
Sure. Hey guys, great to be back. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Risa, yeah, I actually developed an AI similar to what you're talking about. Initially called Skippy, I put a personality on top of him, so he's kind of a sarcastic ass, if you will. And he is enhanced with vector data that learns as you chat with him. So he'll store information like your personal details, nicknames you like, locations, favorite foods. And the vector database, the way the schema works is it is mutatable. So as the AI and the conversation go on, it stores more and more data about the user it's talking to. And we feed this data back into the conversation to enhance that context. So we tell the AI, hey, this is the user you're talking to. This is the information you know about them. And by the way, here's the information you don't know about them. Why don't you follow up with the user and ask? And the AI does. It'll follow up with the user and ask them, hey, didn't catch where you're staying at, or, didn't catch, your favorite shows that you like to watch or something like that. And the AI will ask those questions without the user even needing to do anything. The AI just sees that it's missing this information in the database, reaches out to the user and says, "Hey, the last time we chatted, I didn't get this information from you. Where are you staying at?"
Right.
Caleb,
And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I wanted you to meet Riza anyway, and you guys should talk later and connect on Kauai, because we're all in the same boat right now, and we all have a lot of the same goals. And I think it'd be wonderful to see where we can get with this
Yeah.
for everybody's benefit, and
I'd love to get you in on our Discord server where we got a bunch of these bots that are just there ready to talk to
Yeah.
people and hang out. So
Yeah,
fantastic.
we'll make
Okay.
sure that happens. And then I have a question from the audience. Nitin asks 2 questions. 1, how can AI fit into existing policies? And 2, how schools regularly assess the impact of AI? Okay, so how does it actually fit into the existing policies? A great question. And also a great question, how we regularly assess this impact? Okay, which this is the Wild West for me from what I'm seeing. But go ahead, Ahmad, you have any insight here for
Yeah, I mean, how
policy?
to assess it's, I mean, as it's changing, we need to understand it. When we say we, in this case, it's a school system. And I think part of the strategy should be hiring people within the school system, not to be AI engineer, but to be basically responsible, same like data analyst, and then talking about data in schools, people who understand where AI is going, but also having that conversation and that connections. I mean, what Rebecca mentioned about, the way we need to change teaching, but that's important, and ongoing conversation and action, and basically also experimenting, because really at the end of the day, if this is moving so fast, it is moving very fast, and
Yes.
we're seeing it ourselves. They need to act, and what's the impact on the learning piece. And the only way they could answer that, I mean, we could bring experts from outside for sure, but within having AI basically staff, or AI basically staff who will be looking at what are the tools out there and testing them, and talking to the teachers and education leader within the school, I think it becomes important. So that's, I think now we're seeing more staff. When we were at the conference, I had the director of technology in one of the tables and so on, and they were rolling their eyes about how people just want to adapt it tomorrow, right? They want to start using it, and those director of technology are worried about safety, they're worried about data integrity, they're worried about basically privacy and so on. So that becomes also more important, because having somebody, an expert internally, those conversation becomes more standard, and then they'll be able to get towards an answer better where everybody's agreeing, because we don't want them to go on their own, right? So
Right, right. I mean, in terms of assessments, I mean, where we're at right now is a daily basis, Hopefully it'll be a weekly basis, to a monthly basis, to a quarterly basis, where, to our audience's question from Nitin, how often should this be assessed? And I mean, it should, having your finger on the pulse of something like this as much as possible is so important right now. But I don't know. I mean, if one person's responsibility is to really maintain that, then it's every day. Okay. But on the large, I think that with community effort, and on a large scale community effort, that this happens all the time. Innovation happens every few seconds. I mean, people will discover a better way to do it. Someone will find a bug. And then in the open source world, it's so much easier to address that. There's less bureaucracy. There's more freedom to improve, and also accountability and peer review related to that. And also, this is a choice that we have. I mean, the world is pulling us, and no one's trying to necessarily push it, so hard. But we've got to keep up with people using it beyond policy. This is already, again, people using it for things where they're not allowed to, kids cheating with it or what have you, and it's a new way to engage information at some points. This is becoming more than a tool. It's new avenues altogether. and I wanted to ask, Ahmad, did you have anything that we could look at on doceo? Is it doceo.ai? Am I saying that correctly?
I'll share my screen a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead here. Let's see.
Share my screen, but I want to share with you. I was reading this paper, I mean, before this Conference Board of Canada and how generative AI could close the productivity gap. So economics is key, right? We're talking about money, we're talking about productivity and so on. So, but what I'm interested in when I look at the whole paper, read it, but what's important is the recommendation. And we're talking here about companies, governments, and so on. So invest in experimentation. So we're talking about in school, experimentation meaning, well, I need to try to see how AI could be used in school, in the classrooms, even in improving processes within the school. Develop a national AI infrastructure strategy, same. De-risk adoption for SME. I mean, this is also a bigger picture in terms of ensuring people are or companies are using it. But more importantly, I look at it, the last one, although I say regulate smartly, upskill employees and prep the next generation. So internally as company ourselves, well, we need to get our staff into understanding AI, how to be leveraged. But most important for us in this discussion, prep the next generation, right? So the next generation is the kids in
Yeah.
school. My kid, for me, kids are under 40. So, but really, seriously, this is the key. This is key for us at school and those
Yeah.
discussions and making AI in the school. And it's really the prepping the next generation is not only about the students, it's about the system as a whole, and including the teacher and everything else and so on. And that's what's important. So I'm going to share my website a little bit. See, I already I was
Yeah,
on a
everybody's got it now. That's right. Test it. Do the testing.
So
Yeah.
I have my company doceo.ai. Doceo in actually in Latin, just very fast. In Latin means to show, make bright, teach, enlighten, demonstrate. Anything AI is, and this is why I chose the name, right? doceo.ai. Now, I put this in a presentation for the conference and other conferences. As a company, Intellimedia, and the product that we have, really what we do is we bring data all the way to a point where it's knowledge through basically reporting, bringing data together in terms of correlation and so on. And knowledge meaning is responsibility. Now I need to have action in the school, in business, when I know something. Now, AI for me is making that line in terms of as a timeline much shorter. We're getting there faster. And
Yes.
that's the key. Similar to my example of using Gen AI for not writing but improving my speech, right? So this is one. Now the other one is really in our business when we talk about data in school, and I'm just going to explain very fast in here. For sure, data in school related to student data. There's so much student data that we have from attendance, behavioral, benchmark, meaning how are they in writing at the grade level, for sure all the grades and so on, and also more importantly support. What kind of support we're providing those students, and outside testing like we mentioned before. In Alberta, a diploma test. In some states or provinces, they do have a provincial or state test. So lots of data about students, but also school is not only about student data, is about HR, about
Oh,
professional,
yeah.
about
That's right.
investment in money into school technology,
Mhm.
and how do engagement data, but how do the schools, stakeholders from the parents, the teachers, staff, and student think of the school. The goal
Right.
at the end of the day is to inform the practice of the educators, also the parents, to support the students. We think of AI in our kind of, I wouldn't say narrow, but focus approach is when we talk about data, is it will help us in prediction, statistical prediction, basically prediction of saying who are the students going to have certain challenges in math. You brought the example of basically a math questions. How can we ask AI to ask the question differently? One of its important is when you have ELL students or English language learner or ELE student, English language learner, where their parents are immigrants, where
Right.
English is actually the challenge. So
Yes.
they are good in math, but they wouldn't understand what the question we ask, right? So this is
Yeah.
one of the things that to do. So to support that model in AI is not only about student data, is about the whole system. The business school is very complex, from HR,
Right.
like finance, and so on. And at the end of the day, we want to predict challenges, or also success, and find out why. And after we predict, what can we do? So the action here, recommendation and strategies. All those data exist already in school. They will exist. They are on
Right.
spreadsheets, they are in systems, and we could leverage them, and we leverage them to
Yeah.
provide to teachers or to educators to inform their practice and support their students. Now, when I mention about data in school districts, let's say, one school district could be 3,000 students, but we have school districts over 100,000 students, 200,000 students. The beauty of AI is they need data to be better. So
Right.
this is one of the things we hope in a few years to come, school districts come together to share their data without student name,
Right.
have better AI model. Now, one challenge of this model is, at the end of the day, the data is coming from somewhere. It is a school system. What about the data quality?
Right.
That
Right.
this-
This is the data science behind everything here now. So
And this is where we would need to work with schools, or even creators of the data, to improve the data better. And it is not only a conversation, it's already happening, but it is interesting model. And I think if school districts come together to bring their data together, they will have better answers.
right.
And this is kind of the goal. So this
This
is the kind of work we're doing right now. So
you 2 points here. I mean, look, that's a really exciting factor you bring up is, children who have parents that are immigrants that don't speak English too well, in some cases not at all, and to bridge the divide. I mean, that's incredibly powerful. I mean, these are the types of folks we want to try this first to help. They're the ones that are going to need it the most, and then to Rebecca, we talk about HR on this, the PR behind this, and the outreach that you're doing to bridge the information to the parents and gain that grassroots support for everyone to participate, and the parents can be on the same page as a lot of the other parents around the country. Say, yes, this is happening. We need to address it. Policies need to evolve and adapt for these these needs and these changes. But I find it really exciting, Ahmad, when you say, "Hey, here are students that are maybe English isn't their first language, but they're good enough with it. But then their parents are immigrants. These are going to be some great people to test these types of things first." I mean, I just see a lot of potential in that. I mean, if you're learning something or a topic that's new, that's alien to you, and you're studying it for the first time and you have to get to the next step, then what's the difference in language? It's still an alien concept, I feel a lot of the same pains anyone else would feel when I'm learning something new, depending. Okay. And it helps me too, because again, it's just like a new language altogether. Some types of mathematics are really profoundly different than others. And so you're good at math, but are you good at this kind of math? It's like a different language. So I see a lot of value in that. And Rebecca, are you looking at this the same way as Ahmad is in terms of what's to do next and get this out there? Or
Oh yeah, and I think Ahmad and I, we work with in the same type of environment, right? So I know in Canada, in Alberta specifically, we're welcoming a lot of refugees and immigrants, especially like into Canada. And there's a lot of people coming to Alberta specifically, and we're seeing their unique needs. And this will be a good opportunity to help meet the needs of some of these students, to help them and their families thrive, which I think is incredible. And I love the work that's being done on this. And I think we both also recognize that some of the huge barriers in this, and I'm hearing this at all the districts that I go to, is they're waiting and hoping that their governing bodies like Alberta Education or state guidance or federal guidance into policy development, how we can implement these things, or funding to help us move forward with processes like this is going to be so critical. But we all know technology is moving at light speed right now, and government processes move sometimes like backwards, especially if it's like an election season.
It is.
And so it's so heartening for me to see people like Ahmad doing this work to move this forward in a time frame that will be helpful to people, rather than waiting for somebody else to
Yeah,
do it, because
I
we'd be waiting for a long time.
absolutely. I know, and I was so excited. Ahmad and I have talked plenty of times before off camera, and have had some pretty deep conversations on education. And I was just really it just makes me, it fills me with joy to find friends, colleagues, and allies who share this vision. Caleb has something to say about this. I think is pretty special. Caleb.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I just wanted to say I love what you guys are doing. I used to work at National Math and Science Initiative for many years, which was a STEM education nonprofit, and we went nationwide teaching teachers about STEM education, doing standardized testing for it, and really helping to promote that. So this really speaks to my heart, and I appreciate what you guys are doing here.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm so glad that you were a part of it too. So it's amazing. You know, we all gather around a lot of topics on AI and machine learning and data science and things like that. All the emerging technologies combining and coming coalescing, you know, and then, you know, here are people who are interested in education and helping this become a more formidable tool to help others. And it excites me every day to see the progress that all of you make. You know, I've known some of you for over 6 months now, or, you know, getting close to half a year, you know, and it's phenomenal to see the progress and to see, you know, just the traction we are all able to get as individuals out there working with communities, and just to see what's come before as well. Like Caleb said, I mean, this is a lot like things that have been implemented, you know, to help provide, you know, more backing for teachers, more power for, you know, what do you call it, initiatives, and more opportunities for students ultimately to succeed in ways they may not have been able to before. So I have to thank everybody on that, Caleb, and Rebecca and Ahmed. We have a little time left. I want to keep going and make sure. And I guess you guys have connected on LinkedIn. I put some links in the chat for everyone. But Ahmad, do you have some more to show us here? And also Rebecca, I want to make sure you have your time. So
I have
okay.
no more so, but I want to say that in this concept of student data, we say we're
Mhm.
trying to provide let's call it a tool or a framework. Know your students, same like education, and that's key. And now with AI, we're going to get faster to our goal of knowing our student and be engaged with supporting them. So
Great. This is wonderful to see. Joe Suppers has a hand up. Let's see one moment here. Let me find him. Here we are. Great to see you, Joe. How are you doing?
Great to see you too,
All right.
and glad I could join this morning. One of the
Absolutely.
things that I just wanted to kind of point out to you, because what you're doing, I think, is not only trending, but absolutely necessary. It was very interesting last week when I was watching the press release and conference that Governor of New Jersey, Murphy, had about AI. And what they're trying to do is to become a leader in New Jersey with AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And in fact, there's an organization here in New Jersey called New Jersey Big Data Alliance. And it kind of ties together with AI and big data. And what they're trying to do is become a leader. So what I'm seeing are other states around the country, and even in Canada, when you look at what's going on in Edmonton with, I think it's DeepMind, part of the Google organization.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the meccas for AI. It just is very interesting that it is in Edmonton. But my point is that you're seeing governments now and states take AI really seriously and trying to figure out how they can use it as an economic development driver. And I thought that was very interesting. And it goes back to what Khalib and Rebecca were talking about regarding students and education, because it all starts there. We got to keep those students who graduate to stay in those communities that they're in instead of relocating to other areas. So this whole concept of AI in education is becoming real important for organizations, cities and states alike. Thank you.
No, absolutely, Joe. Good to see you there.
Good to
And
see you too.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Joe's been on before. He's helped us a lot. He's doing a lot for people out there. So, but yeah, I mean, every week I become, I find out about another association or another group where, oh, we got to pull these people together. They need to know so and so. I mean, it's funny. My first, when we did our first public show, it was Jerry Ching in Singapore, and it was through him that I met some great friends at the AI Verify Foundation who pointed me to Riza at Kwaii, and so here we are in full circle. I mean, there's a large global community that's getting, the world's getting smaller in a good way as we come together and share these thoughts and ideas, and especially approaches to policy. And we have this advantage in North America between, Canada and the United States. We are mostly English speaking, but that's not what's important. Is we are all lumped into a lot of similar policy locally. And and I learn a lot from other countries. I learned so much. And to see things, I mean, there's news articles, there's things I could probably show. I don't want to bring up a bunch of videos and things from other news sources, but it's profound what's even happening here, where they're letting experiments with education, and I think probably fifth grade elementary, where they're allowing the kids to use AI, and that's the teacher that's driving it, and they're saying, oh, we're learning a lot faster, and we're learning why. I think that boils down to having really engaging children, though, too, and people who really care about learning. Because I was a super nerd as a kid, and I really got into a lot of things that were curriculum, and so maybe I was lucky. But anyways, yeah, it's important for us to connect the dots. I put the New Jersey Big Data Alliance link in the chat for everyone. And it doesn't matter if you're on the East Coast or not. You find out about what that is and look at what they're related to and find out what's on your coast, and every week I'm getting great resources from Joe, and I have a lot of friends out there who really care about what we're all doing. And so get to know Joe and get to know everybody around at Swiss Fault as well. They're incredible people. But Rebecca, and back to you, so what are you doing next, and where do you see things going for you and your goals in the next few weeks? I know you have a webinar coming up. I know you're going to go speak. You in
Yeah,
Canada next?
that's really what's on my radar. I have
Yeah.
a lot of traveling to do at
Okay.
educational summits all over
Mhm.
the US. I think in Ohio is my next recent, a bunch of
Okay.
webinars coming up. I think I'm in Colorado and just
Right.
kind of all over the place, just helping
Uh-huh.
to spread AI literacy and
Right.
understanding. And then in the back end, I'm talking to a few universities about consulting with them on developing some curriculum for their schools or helping teach some components in some of their existing programs, but just kind of seeing what comes next and where I can help and where I can be useful and contribute to
Right.
this discourse. I'm
Uh-huh.
speaking specifically to at a school boards convention in Alberta and then a national school board convention to help educate the people who are governing these bodies as well. So I think just my mission is to spread that AI literacy and awareness as much as I can to do my small part so that then people are open to people like Ahmed when they're ready to understand the
That's right.
importance of this and move forward in
Uh-huh.
proactive directions.
Right. You have 4 kids in college now, don't you?
I
Wow.
do. So
So you're
lots of
vested.
time.
A lot of
Lots of
blood in the
time.
game. All right. And so is Ahmad. Ahmad, your children are how old and where?
I have one son, Daniel. He's in, his name is Daniel. So
Hey, here we go. All right.
he's at university. He's a business student. So yeah.
Great. Excellent. So see, look at this. We have people who care for all the right reasons and are vested. Okay. So I just want to thank you both for coming out today. Again, I was so excited for this a long time ago, and I was like, oh, how is this going to time out? Everybody's out of town all the time, but here we are. Let's see. Let's make sure we've got everybody covered. So is there anything else before we end the show? Any other last questions from our audience? Anybody out there? I appreciate all the wonderful questions throughout. There's been some really good ones. Let's see here. I've got one more. Oh, okay. Providing a personalized AI teacher curriculum for each student would powerfully propel learning. Seems the barrier to this is protecting the kids' personal information. Do you agree? And if so, what protections do we currently have to protect their information so AI can be applied in this way? That's powerful. Okay. All right. So that's from Yvette. And I mean, this is I would have to guess this is going to be like protecting any other personal data. I mean, what if maybe this is not the best analogy, but like HIPAA, okay, or some kind of like some extra layer of protection for children, for minors, anyone 18 or under, anyone who's in school, but this goes for everybody. We're all people, age or not, we're all people. And so our data and information should be protected equally, but they deserve more in the beginning, I'm sure. So there is something that's called FERPA, says Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, for that. I'm not sure what that is, but FERPA, everybody can look that up. I've got another question here from Nitin. How feasible is it to use AI to translate, educate students in non-English speaking countries the same syllabus curriculum that students in developed nations learn? This could level the playing field. I am way behind this too. I really support
Very
this.
feasible, I
This is a
think.
big deal.
Ahmad, don't you?
Yep.
This is very feasible. This is one of the biggest pros of artificial intelligence in terms of leveling the playing field.
Right.
And even in really diverse schools, like we're seeing now because of immigration, and now teachers can have the ability to teach kids of every language, even in their own voice or through their own video with their own likeness and their own voice in somebody's language that they're most familiar with, which is amazing for inclusivity. And
Right.
Ahmad, English is your third language. You probably are positioned best to speak on something like this.
I mean, when I just came back from Vietnam, and then, I don't speak Vietnamese, and also not only using Google, but I mean, immediate translation, even over voice, right? That's a tool. So in bringing it to the classrooms, bringing it to the content that could be immediately translated. Yes, it is very, very feasible. So, and I know some schools in Alberta are using some of it in terms of with their new students who don't speak English.
Right, right. I commonly use ChatGPT-4 to translate for me. Sometimes I use Google. A lot of times I use ChatGPT-4, and it does a great job, but I'm not going for a lot of characters that are hard to do. I think I use Google when I do Japanese to English and vice versa. I have a lot of concern and want for more localization and easy access for language. These shows get turned into articles that get translated into Japanese by things outside my control and get published elsewhere around the world. I'd like it to make it easier for people and have this to be multilingual and actually stream live in other languages. I think maybe give me 6 months. I'll see what I can do. Okay. But other
it's
than
possible
that,
right now.
yeah, but there are
there's
other
technology out there.
absolutely, especially with the things that Microsoft put out this week that could take a picture of you and a little bit of voice, and then there you go, you're talking, and in different languages. That's going to be key. But great question. And to you, Nitin, stick around and stay in touch with me. This is something that's close to my heart and something I'm very interested in making happen. And I get asked this a lot by a lot of people too. Transcribing live, translations for live events, translations for hybrid events. There's a handful of companies out there that are doing a great job. I have services that I subscribe to for my transcriptions. They do a fantastic job. And mileage varies, but again, localization in your language, participate at the ground level wherever you can to help make that possible. Kaggle.com has plenty of competitions where people are doing translations, different natural language processing. There were some events that one of my old instructors was involved with for gym where they were taking text, or what was this, data to text translations. They were taking like tabular data and turning it into paragraphs of easy spoken language. But they were translating while doing this. So keep up with that, okay, Nitin, and stay in touch with me on that. I'd love to talk with you further about that. And for everybody else, I just want to say thanks again. Let's see. Oh, and then there, Harrisman says, hey, there's a company called Whisper that will take your soundless speech and turn it into text. That can enable different speeches in different languages. That's fantastic. I love that. So absolutely, I'm gonna check that out too. But anyway, we'll have to talk about some of these developments down the road and see where we are at. This is our first AI in K-12 education show. There will be more. And I'd love to have both of you back on and to see where we're at. And feel free to connect to everybody today here in the event. There's a lot of people who came in who really care and who have information that could help all of us. Okay, so let's all stick together. We're in it together. And so thanks again, everybody. Thanks for taking the time. Ahmad, Rebecca, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll be talking soon, okay?
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.